Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another wonderful tasting with the Virtual Tasting Society. My name is Vadim Perlovsky, and today we're excited to try a new independent bottler on the world stage, someone that we are very familiar with, someone we love dearly and consider a close friend. Sam Filmus is here to tell us about ImpEx independent bottling line, ImpEx Collections. So we've had quite a few tastings with Sam and the ImpEx portfolio. They represent some really amazing brands of world whiskey, Scotch, what have you. And it's pretty cool and amazing that, you know, with your years of experience, your all of your accolades and awards, you finally decided to pick barrels for yourself. I know you pick barrels for your brands that you work with. So I'm sure the stuff you're picking for yourself is the best of the best of the best. So we're excited to try it. We're going to be tasting the latest, your third release. So some of the bottles here are from the third release. We got a couple of world whiskeys. We have a very colorful lineup in front of us. 2 drams that are nearly pale straw, and then 4 that are super dark sherry casks. But all that said, thank you so much for being here. We're super excited. We're to have you here for the evening. Sam, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and take it away.
Thanks, Vadim. Thanks for the invite, and thank everyone who joined us today. Nice to see familiar faces. I consider your group as a very kind of nerdy group, and I expect some questions that I will not be able to answer, so I apologize in advance. I'm Sam Filmus with ImpEx Beverages, the importer of small to medium-sized craft brands from different distilleries out of Scotland, and also some world distilleries. Also, besides single malts or single grain or blends that we bring from these distilleries, we bring some other categories of spirits like cordials, mezcals, rums, gins, trying to bring something that would be palatable or suit the palates of a wide range of whiskey and other spirits lovers. And today we're going to be talking about my brand called the ImpEx Collection. When I say my brand, I mean it belongs to me and my business partner, Chris. This is our passion project, something that we love to do, selecting casks and sharing the experience and what's in the bottle with people like yourself and your group.
We're super stoked. So we have 6 expressions in front of us. Do you want to tell us a little bit about these expressions and what order we should put them in? And as you know, most of us have 6 glasses in front of us, so we'll pour them and let them open up as we go.
Sure. If you don't mind my suggested pouring order, I would go with Benrini's 16-year-old first, as this is softer, lighter style whiskey. And the next one is going to be the Highland from Blair Athol, that's distilled about 15 years ago, or spent 15 years in Oloroso sherry butt. Then we go to another distillery. By the way, all 3 distilleries come from Diageo. And as you know, Diageo is the biggest spirit company that owns about 27 distilleries. They are owners of Johnnie Walker. So a lot of these brands that we're going to be tasting today would kind of get lost in big releases of their blends, but we're able to, well, to be lucky enough to enjoy that as a single distillery, single batch, single cask. So this 3 would be kind of our scotches. Then we go back to world whiskey. In this case,
So,
you're familiar
sorry, Sam,
with us.
Did you say what the third one is? Because
The third one was a Krusk.
Krusk, okay.
10-year-old.
Because Kalila is also a Diageo brand, and I didn't think you were going to put that third. So
it is correct. I put it towards the end of the tasting line because it's peaty smoky whiskey. So even though it's not the last one, but I thought right after M&H would be a good idea to taste something that people like from Islas. Mm-hmm. And we found this Kalila is pretty special. So a Krusk 10-year-old would be number 3. Number 4 would be M&H Distilleries, majority of you familiar with. And this is a special cask of Muscat cask that has been in a cask for 3 years. And as you know, hot climate in Israel, makes the whiskeys or the casks work like a harmonica. So it's a very intensively matured 3-year-old whiskey that people, when they taste blindly, probably think it's 10 to 12-year-old. And we proudly put the age on the label because we think it is important. We're not afraid of saying that's 3-year-old whiskey because nowadays, young whiskeys could taste pretty good. Same thing with Penderyn, but after M&H, we're going to go to Kalila, which again, thank you, Vadim, it's another Diageo distillery. And in this case is a single cask of Hogshead of 13-year-old matured Kalila. And the last one is going to be our Welsh whiskey called Penderyn. And this is a Malvasia matured, not finished, but matured cask from one of the very super prestigious wineries in Madeira Island called Blondis. And that's a collaboration between 3 companies, ImpEx Beverages as an importer of Penderyn, Penderyn as a distiller or producer, and Blondis as a producer of high-end Madeira wines.
So we're going to do Penderyn after Kalila. I'm looking forward to
It's
that. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a bit risky for me. I would say 95% of people in my shoes would put Kalila at the end, but knowing how sophisticated your group is, I think by tasting the whiskey number 6, they will still have this palate that would appreciate the Penderyn, because it's not a regular Penderyn that we're used to, that when they use the Faraday steel and the distill, it comes very soft and fruity. It's actually double copper distilled. So it's oilier, it's waxier, it's more like a mouthfeel that you will be able to enjoy, I hope, and you'll like it as much as we did. This cask actually came from their museum. So if they come across some super unique casks, they would not put it in their regular releases. They would just set it aside, as they call it, whiskey library, and keep it for some special occasions. And when I asked them to find the cask for me to put it under the ImpEx collection, they sent me 2 samples, and we loved both samples. We tried them 3 times during 2 weeks. We loved them big time, and I asked them if I could get 2, and they said, no, just 1. So I had to go and beautiful cat, awesome. Bill. So yeah, that's basically the lineup today that you're gonna be suffering through.
I hope. Suffering, yes, that's well said. Yeah, Penderyn, I mean, we tasted it with you and the distillers, and it's a brand that I absolutely love. And you're right. Normally their spirit's very light and fruity, and so I'm excited to try a different side of Penderyn. That's not something you get to try every day. Yeah, so that's what we're trying to do. Sometimes I'm trying to bring the cask that kind of mirrors the DNA of the distillery, the style of the distillery. But sometimes I come across a weird cask that not really what this distillery DNA is. It's just that case as an exception. Because Faraday still, as you probably know, it's more like a coffee still in some way. I mean, they combine the copper plates with just a regular continuous still distillation as it goes once, and it produces a very high ABV spirit between 90 to 92, which is the highest in the industry, but very soft and fruity and citrusy. That's what makes Penderyn. They're not trying to copy Scotland or Ireland or India. It's just their own. But this cask, I think if you try blindly, you would not think it's Penderyn, and that's why we brought it in. So very cool. Yeah, when I look at your portfolio of brands, I sometimes think that you may have Jim Swan was a partner at ImpEx, considering how many Jim Swan brands you import. Yeah, we're kind of proud of. Yeah, Jim Swan definitely is behind a lot of distilleries like Kilchoman,
in our portfolio, besides being, behind Kavalan and Amrut and many others. He's also behind M&H, and at Penderyn, he actually was a part of the board of directors, so he was deeply involved in Penderyn, but also Spirit of Yorkshire, the Filey Bay, he's behind this one, and he's behind Nick Neon, that we just brought in, the organic single malt from Scotland. So we're proud, and we have a few. I kind of don't want to throw the names in front of you, but at the same time, it's not George Clooney for tequila. It's people who really are in this business, like Billy Walker from Glenallachie, 50 years in the business. Sukhinder Singh, Charlie McLean, Alex Bruce, Anthony Wills, Surinder Kumar. Those are people who are either made their whiskey themselves or were behind the distillery. So we're very proud of having this. And I'm sure I'm missing a few names like Oliver Chilton, another great palate in the industry. So yeah, we're lucky, for sure.
Sounds good. Yeah, so tell us about this Ben Rinnes.
So Ben Rinnes, the Diageo distillery, and they opened in 1826, so they've been around for a while, but not too many, even in, well, I would say there's a number of independent bottle distilleries that, releases that I came through, and I'm pretty sure you did as well, where Ben Rinnes' name was on the label. They had one release called, and that's from Diageo, Manager's Choice, I believe it's called, or Manager's Choice, I think. And then there was a few from the independent bottler that affiliated with Diageo called Flora and Fauna, but not too many of Ben Rinnes. And the ones that I really liked was one from Gordon MacPhail, and I think another one was from Cadenhead. So we came across this cask, and first of all, it's worth to mention that there's 3 distilleries in Scotland that use 2.5 time distillation process. One of them is Springbank, another one is Mortlach, another one is Ben Rinnes. When I say use, Ben Rinnes would be used to use, because they stopped doing 2.5 time distillation in 2007, and this is 2006, so it's one of the last distillations that went through this process. That makes it very unique, and the reason I put it number 1, we usually call it sacrificial lamb bottling, because usually people start with something lighter and then they would go looking for more like whiskiness, more malt profile, viscosity, and etc. But I think I don't want to say it's smooth, because some of my teammates don't like this word, but it's light enough to start your day with, and it's actually light enough, but at the same time has the character that you can go through the day with it without looking for something more characteristical. So this is 16-year-old Ben Rinnes that produced about, how many bottles were there? Oxhead must have been 200, 300 bottles, 264. This is a major component to, sorry?
That's pretty big, 264 bottles.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, it's if it was a bourbon cask, it would be around 200.
Okay.
Maybe
So
a little bit
hogshead
more.
is bigger than a regular bourbon barrel.
Exactly, it's 250 liters.
Instead
And,
of 220?
So, yeah, bourbon cask would be 200, but then usually they would come from different, wine producers, etc., or they would go through the cooperage. And what the cooper does, he would take the bourbon cask and add some staves to make it from 200 liters to 250 liters. So hogshead, it's more like referred to the size rather than to what was there in the past. And when we get to Caol Ila, we'll talk more about that, because that's a little bit of a interesting story on this. Yeah, but 250, I would say that's definitely former bourbon cask, because you
Okay.
can get some nice vanilla and a floral nose, toffee. It's really nice whiskey for the blenders, but blenders like it a lot because it has a nice kind of a marrying between the components of the brands. So, typical Speyside, we used to characterize Speyside as a very delicate, kind of a soft whiskey, even though now there's a lot of exceptions. But I would say it's an old style Speyside. That's what we used to enjoy. I'm talking about Linkwoods of the world, Outmoors, in some ways, Macallans, Glen Grants, all the, Glendronachs, Glenallachs. Also, JMB uses it a lot as well. So it's two major blends that use Benrinis. While it's kind of light, it shines through, and that's what blenders like, because the malted portion in the bottle, that's what dictates why JMB tastes as JMB and why Johnny Walker tastes as Johnny Walker, etc.
It's light flavored, but it's not dull in any way, shape, or form. It's very, very pleasant.
I agree, Kate, 100%. It's has this kind of a character that develops in your palate, and it's very pleasant, where you want to take another sip, and that's, to me, a sign that that's a nice balanced whiskey. I did get some black pepper on the nose at some point. Maybe marmalade.
The palate's interesting because to me it's almost like I'm taking a warm hug pill where the pill itself tastes like sweet fruit. So I taste the sweet fruit on my palate and mouth, and then when it gets to the back of my throat, it like opens up to a nice warm hug that sort of sits there, and I'm really enjoying not just the flavor, but sort of that experience, which both are, I think, pretty unique as a combination.
You're so right, Jordan. The minute it touches your tongue, that's where character develops and where it shows. It's like goes here and just, yeah, I agree 100%. See with the water.
So Benrinis doesn't. I think they don't have any official bottlings, right? They don't release anything under their own.
I came across a Diageo release called Manager's Choice, I believe. Yeah, I think it's Manager's Choice. And then, they have a independent bottle that kind of affiliated with their distilleries called Flora and Fauna. It's like we talked about Edward and Signatory in the past, or
Gordon
Springbank
MacPhail, right?
and Gordon MacPhail and Ben Romach, or Springbank and Cadenhead. So independent bottlers like to be affiliated or own the distilleries, because that gives them a good trading power, where they want some good cask, and let's say they want 25-year-old Glen Grant cask, so they can say, I have 10 casks of 5-year-old Edredar, let's trade it. So basically Flora and Fauna is affiliated with Diageo, so they had a couple of, maybe 1 or 2 releases of Benrinis, not too much. Majority of it gets lost in big blends, but I think it's worth to experience it. And if it was not independent bottles, probably a lot of us would not even know that this beautiful distillery releases, exists, and how great the whiskey is. So.
I know in the past when I've had Benrinis, I've gotten a minerality on it that wasn't my favorite, and this one, the sweetness is definitely more prevalent than the minerality. I think this is the most enjoyable Benrinis I've ever had.
Yeah, we're very happy when we tasted it. and we usually taste 3 times before we make a decision. So especially when you go to Scotland, you taste there and you taste a lot of other whiskeys. So you gotta, before you pull the trigger, you have to come back and get yourself in a different environment. You know, like food could be tasting this week, this as much as next week would be a little bit different. So the same thing with this. So we were not disappointed every time we tested it. It was great. It was great.
And when you're tasting, are you tasting it at cask strength every time?
So what I do with cask strength, I just put it on the tip of my tongue, wait for 5 seconds before it gets to my body temperature, and then swallow it. And then I would definitely add water. And we don't always bottle it at cask strength as much as it seems to be cask strength, because, you know, we're talking about 54%, 55%, 58%. But sometimes we find it's more enjoyable when you add a little bit water before bottling it, because some people don't want to add any water to their whiskey. So we want to make sure that it's at its optimal tasting level, where you, if you don't want to add any water, you still enjoy it without having the alcohol hitting you or numbing your taste buds. So that's why, and we're very transparent about that. We don't put cask strength on the label, because we leave this privilege to us to decide what level this whiskey should be tasted. So some of them we don't touch, but some of them we do. And we're talking about variation of 1 or 2%. It's not noticeable, but we think it's important. There's another independent bottler who does it. It's called Samaroli. I don't know if you heard of it or not. It's a very reputable independent bottler, and they always bring the strength to the level that they think the whiskey tastes best. So we're not copying it, but trying to bring the experience that we feel would be the best for enjoyment.
I was gonna say, it reminds me a little bit of a single malt to Scotland, where Ollie Chilton brings it down to like 48. And I've had some of those expressions, and they blew me away at how good they were. And I was like, this doesn't taste very hot. Oh, because it's at 48. But it's still a respectable ABV, just not cask strength.
Yeah, we've brought it in here. It's called the reserve casks, which he brings 3 to 10 casks together and dilutes it to 48. And the first one was Lafroig from Islay, Kleinlich from Highlands, and a Linkwood from Speyside. And that's kind of a strategy I wanted to continue, to kind of take 3 major whiskey producing areas of Scotland and, you know, showcase those at a pretty affordable price. But this time they didn't have any Highlands. That shows again how it becomes difficult to source the casks. So we ended up ordering, and it's been on the water now. One from Islay, there's Kalila. I know, Brian, you don't want to hear that. And then Benrinis actually would be the Speyside, and then another Speyside, I forgot what it was. So the same concept, 48% non-chill filtered, natural color. But I would say not cheap, but cheaper, more affordable than the single casks, because it's not single cask and because it's a lower ABV, hoping that this will bring people to maybe their single casks for the special occasions.
Benrinis in the glass looks like it never touched wood. It's so light, but it's so delicious.
Yeah, I think being, going through this 2.5 time distillation process, you don't want to put a lot of wood influence on it, because you still want to see this DNA shining through. That makes it so, approachable and delicate and delicious. And I agree with a few participants that when it gets to your palate, you still, it's not bitey or something, but you feel the character there. And that's, I think, is achieved by not having some strong, first fill sherry cask or first fill bourbon cask. So it's a good balance. I like the balance on this whiskey.
Mm.
Jane, I like your notes. Very, very on point.
And this is, so the Ben Arenas is part of the third release?
Yeah, so it's edition 3 of the ImpEx collection. So basically those editions are kind of once a year, but it's more like a passion project for us. It's not like someone is above our head saying, you need to bring so many cases of this or so many pallets. We come across a nice cask, we bottle it. When we have a decent number of casks together where I could see there's one from Isla, there's one sherry cask at least, there's one from Spacehead, one from Highlands, some world whiskeys, and some grain whiskey, some unnamed distillery, kind of different ranges of different price points. We just release it. So if now we have a few casks that we selected there at the distilleries waiting. We just brought in a cask from Pocono Distillery out of New Zealand, and also we just selected a cask from Lochley, Lowland Distillery that John Campbell is general manager of, or Master Distiller. So watch the space. We'll have some surprises for you.
Looking forward to it. So with distilleries that you have a personal relationship with, right, that you are the importer for, obviously the picking casks seems like a simpler thing. What about Ben Arenas? Are you getting them from a broker, or how do you get access to those casks?
So this cask came to us through our supplier that we sell tons of whiskey from, and this is kind of their thank you, because they're independent bottler themselves. And as I mentioned, there's a good kind of camaraderie feel among the independent bottlers, because we feel this category becomes stronger. So it came from Oliver Chilton, from Elixir Distillers, so Kinder Singh. They have a huge relation with Diageo distilleries specifically, and with other distilleries. And again, we sell their Porterscape, we sell their rum called Black Tot, we sell their independent bottler called Single Malts of Scotland, the one you mentioned, reserve casks, Director Special, Elements of Isla, and now as they just bought a distillery in Speyside called Tormore, hopefully in 2025 it is going to become available. They're also building their own distillery on Isla, so it's like a great relationship where Sukinder Singh would basically get a key to Kalila distillery and open it for Oliver to come in and select like 50 casks and put them together to release Porterscape, which in this industry you have to have a reputation and connections and etc. And Sukinder Singh, he developed the #1 retailer in the world called Whiskey Exchange. They have 3 locations, and he just sold it to Brown-Forman. But by developing and putting, he's a huge whiskey collector and another great person to deal with, very reputable in the industry, and that's what it takes to have an access to distilleries to select their casks. Pineapple Jane, it's a great one. Now I have to look for it.
Yeah, Kate asked about water, and I took one for the team, and I put a little teeny bit and a couple of drops of water in it just to kind of see how it worked. And it did sort of soften that nose up a little more towards pineapple from the strawberry and the toffee and chocolate I got off of when I first opened it. So it's kind of a chameleon. It's fascinating how it's changing while it's open.
Yeah, more pear for sure. Yeah. Yeah, we don't encourage, but we appreciate people adding water, especially at the strength that these are bottled at. So it's good that you get some additional notes. It takes you the same direction, but I think wider spectrum of different flavors that you get for sure. I love your cat, Bill. What's her name or his name?
Her name is Sherry.
Sherry. Oh,
and
that's
her
great.
brother is Pete.
There we go. We're gonna taste some whiskey from the Sherry butt. So
She likes watching the tastings because she gets to hear her name.
that's great. So you must go through a lot of Sherry matured whiskeys with Virtual Society group.
Yeah.
Virtual Tasting Society. Cool. Are we ready for the next one?
Let's dive into it.
All right. So the next one is called Blair Athol, which comes from Southern Highlands. And we mentioned before Edderdour Distillery. Blair Athol is like 10 minutes away from Edderdour in city of Pitlochry. And I have to confess that I've been to Edderdour many, many times, never made it to Blair Athol, and feel guilty about it and promised myself that I will stop by next time I'm in the UK because it's a hidden gem, I think. Another fact is that my keeper banquet was at Blair Castle. I mean, it's a crime. Shame on me that I was not able to visit it. But this particular one was matured in the ex Oloroso sherry casks or sherry butt, to be more exact on this one. I don't see a lot of Blair Athol distilleries or releases by independent bottlers. And Brian was the one who would say, Sam, we need Blair Athol. We need Blair Athol to make the bouquet even more appealing. And here we go. Brian, welcome. You got Blair Athol. This one produced 654. Go ahead, sorry.
This whiskey happens, the way I describe it to people is it's a big, fat whiskey. It's huge. It offers a great amount of flavor profile. The nicety of this is, again, I always suggest people add a drop or two of water to taste it both ways to see which way they like it most. And as you do that, I think this just releases huge flavors that you couldn't get at the initial stage when you taste it straight.
Thanks, Brian. So it's one of the oldest distilleries. It was opened in 1798, I believe. And then it was closed for a while and then was reopened. Again, I've seen one or two releases by Flora and Fauna. We talked about that. It's a Diageo kind of IB. Didn't see a lot of it released. I might have missed it, but even among independent bottlers, I don't remember a lot of it being available. Majority of it goes into Bell's, which is a huge brand in UK, again, owned by Diageo. So we're very happy to get this single cask. Usually, Highland whiskies are more like robust. If we compare it with Speyside delicate whiskies, not as approachable as Speyside whiskies, and it's not a general rule anymore, but that's what all kind of a style of description of each whiskey producing region in Scotland would be. But this one, I think has a nice coat provided by the Oloroso sherry cask or sherry butt that makes it so warm, pretty oily on the palate, maybe even waxy. But I got some ginger on the nose, some strawberries, even some mint. toffee. Yeah, you're right, Brian. Even on the glass, it looks pretty oily. A lot of viscosity and the mold profile really pronounced.
This is my favorite of this year's expressions that you did, Sam.
All right. Sounds great. I'll take this compliment because I know you're picky sometimes. Some layers of spice on the palate. Jason, are you talking about the whiskey?
In this case, yes. Even though I'm in
Okay.
Vegas, yes, I am talking about the whiskey.
Just checking because Vadim asked me to ask you. So you in Vegas?
Yep, that's how dedicated I am to coming to see you and dedicated to the stuff that you and ImpEx put out. I brought it all with me to Vegas so I could be a part of this tonight rather than having to watch it passively later on.
I appreciate that, Jason. We all appreciate that, and that's another one of the territories that Brian covers. He just loves gambling. That's why he volunteered to.
I like smoking cigars sitting outside of the what is it, the Horseshoe Casino? But anyway, they have a dueling piano bar, and you can, while I'm smoking the cigar, you can hear the pianos play outside. So it's a really nice, relaxed atmosphere.
That's basically where I'm at. I'm at the Link, which is right next to Harrah's, and it's the piano bar's down on the first level of Harrah's.
Yep,
Every
there
time
you
I
go.
walk, every time I came back from my convention this weekend, there was something going on, and I think it was Big Elvis this afternoon. I heard, and then the dueling pianos were last night when I was walking back. So it's nothing stops happening. It's always something happening at all times.
Jen, I
I
love
understand
your
why.
comments.
Sorry, I was just trying to say I understand why Brian loves this one, because you can drink it as is, and it's almost like a sherry on steroids, right? And then you add a little bit of water, and you get something slightly different, and it actually takes a lot of water. And if you add a lot more water, you get something entirely different. So I could see this is just a fun one that you can play with, at whatever level of ABV that you want. So
This is great, Kate. Do you guys, by adding water, do you get any honey? Kind of a hint of it there. Some fruity notes, but I get some honeycomb or something that really nice. So as much as I like to argue with you, Brian, I want to agree with you. This is great whiskey.
honestly, I could just inhale the fumes and not ever put any in my mouth. This is so it's great. It's just fun. It's a fun one.
And it's more pronounced when you get the water there. That's for me. But I like also Jane's when you said I could just smell it. This for ages, so good. Got some sherry funk. Yeah. And now sherry is gone off the screen. We're trying to bring up sherry so many times, and Bill just disappeared with sherry.
What's really funny is that I just happen to have one other sample on my desk right now, and it's another Blair Athol 13-year, and I know it's blurring it, but completely light. It's not as light as the Ben Rennes, but it's a different independent bottler. Also 55.5, so nearly the same ABV. It's crazy. Blair Athols are coming out the same ABV.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know if it's a problem or more natural process of all this, bottlings, is that when people were putting the new make in the cask, they were thinking of blend. So they were not really paying attention what is going to happen with it in, 15, 16 years, whenever, 10 years, 12 years. And the surprise is that some of them came up really, really nice. We see Bill back, but no Sherry. She probably got tired of her hearing her name. Decided to. You guys don't understand Sherry.
So this
Vlad, one thing I wanted to say to you is obviously one came from ex-bourbon cask and the other one is more sherry barrel. So it's really kind of cool there to kind of compare and contrast both types of where the barrel affects the distillate. Because between you, me, and the wall, the distillate is going to be the same. It goes into the barrel and changes.
So the Blair Alpha spent all 15 years in that sherry butt, yes? Nice.
Matured from day one. From its birthday, yeah. As you noticed, Vadim, and probably your group, we don't do a lot of finishes.
Mhm.
And nothing wrong with it. It's just, for whatever reason, I want to bring whatever's in cask from day one to your lips without me being involved in that. We're not the whiskey makers, we're not the distillers. We just want to bring the kind of original DNA of the distillery or something that is odd and not this distillery style, but again, without, any changes. Of course, needless to say, no chill filtration, no artificial color, like everything is as natural as possible. But I think there was only one cask that we finished, and it was Springbank, a bourbon mature Springbank. It's been there for about 24 years, and then we moved it into a second fill sherry cask for about a year to become 25. But the rest is like whatever's in the cask is in the bottle. So if you go to the distillery and you taste it right from the cask, that's what you have in the bottle.
Wow. What do you do with the casks? Because a second fill sherry cask is still very valuable to the industry.
Again, we're not the whiskey makers, so there's not too much to do with the cask. For example, we brought 10 casks from Jamaica, Rome, Long Pond Distillery and Clarendon Distillery. And we wanted it to be tropical aged because 95% of Roms that hit the United States market are continentally aged. So they go through one of the European countries and because they're kind of trying to stop or to slow down the aging. We decided to go all the way from tropical aging to the bottle. So we brought it to one of the distilleries here in California, in San Jose, who is familiar with the area in Silicon Valley, called 10th Street Distillery. So they bottle it for us and they keep the cask, because what they do while the cask is fresh, they put their new make in it, or they put their previously matured in ex-bourbon cask whiskey in it to finish. And they love it, and really, really good combination. Their distillate works very well with ex-rom casks. So we don't collect the casks. We don't. Sometimes, if the customer wants the whole cask exclusively, we would bring it for them. But honestly, it's a big headache because you have to go through the Department of Agriculture to sign a bunch of papers to bring the wood into the United States. Plus, it's costly because it takes like a quarter of a pallet. So, but yeah, some people want it. So we just brought a Kilchoman cask to one of the musical bands called Salamander. It's in your area, by the way. Nick Capoletti is the composer and the leader of the band. So they do guitars using Kilchoman wood. Guitars from that and from Belvini. He is a huge connoisseur. So, but honestly, distillers, they like their casks because, they can. The first releases of Kilchoman, they were all first fill. and then they would reuse it. So it's a second fill. It takes a little bit longer to mature, but it still, doesn't cover the DNA of the distillate, and it's just useful for them. Or they would sell it to some producers. I've seen some tequila producers using ex-Scotch casks and vice versa. So there's a lot of things going on in a trade.
Yeah, that's what I figured was essentially you would give once they're bottled, you would give your casks to one of the distilleries you work with in Scotland, so you don't have to ship them over and they don't get trashed. Still give them a second life. I can imagine anything aged in this Blair Athol cask is going to be amazing.
Absolutely. We once brought a cask of Rosebank that we bottled for one of the customers, signatory, and we happened to keep it in the van for about 2 or 3 days. Man, this smell in the van was amazing. It stayed there for a good few weeks, and then my business partner Val took it home, cut it, and put some trees in it. So that's how it ended up. There we go, Jane. Thank you. You did find some honey. Yep. All right. Ready for the next one?
Mm-hmm.
So the next one is another Diageo distillery, but a lot of people here have troubles pronouncing it. So we call it Achroisk, but it's actually sounds like Achroisk. And it's just one of the reasons, so maybe it's not as popular, is because of the hard to pronounce name. But again, this is probably one of the lightest whiskeys that we brought under this ImpEx collection. It's really, really light. It's more like a Sauvignon Blanc color or something close to it. Again, because it's younger, it's 10 years old, I would assume that this is second or refill cask. It's a pretty young distillery. Because of the name, they used to kind of give it a second name or nickname. So it's Singleton. You probably seen Singleton from Glenward or Dufftown or Glendolin or Croisk. At some point, it was allocated specific expression to Europe, specific expression for US. I don't know if it took off or I didn't see it kind of widely available, but if you see Singleton and then you see this Dufftown or Glenward or Glendolin or a Croisk, that's what it is. So it's a little bit heavier character, and that's why I put it right after Big Blair Athol, because I get some peppery notes here, and why it's so like heavily, I would say heavy character, because they have this very quick fermentation and rapid mashing. So that's the style that they're looking for, because being part of the blend, you got to have something that you would shine through. And that's exactly what Croisk is about. It makes it a little bit more characteristical, as this portion of single malt in the blend kind of creates the style of the blend. So it's important for them to have one or two components that are more pronounced. Again, very rare to find under its own label. There was a series called Rare Malts, and that's where they used the Croisk for one of the releases, and that was back in 2003. I was trying to find something that is real, like lately released, and I couldn't find anything. So I got a kind of a sweet floral honey notes on the nose. definitely big, despite the color. Creamy caramel. This one definitely needs a drop of water. Light oakiness, like black tea. Wow. Bill, that's interesting. You get some maple on Blair. I need to revisit it. That's a good point there. We did find some flourness in it, but maple would be a very. I get some herbal notes on this one. Yeah, marshmallow. Yep. It's another example how, people think of Spacehead being kind of light. You got the character there, you got some biting venom in there. Definitely shows its younger side of 10-year-old. Yep.
Okay, Jane's just showing off right now. This is great. The nose on this one belies what's actually happening in the glass. To me, the nose was kind of flat, not very interesting. But man, when you get it on your lips, wow, there's just so much going on there. And I've added some water, and every time I add a drop or two, I get something entirely different. Another fun one. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I enjoy your comments, both of you, Kate and Jane. Yeah, I even get some cereal notes. It's like when you bake bread and you just take it out of oven. That's what I get here. Interesting,
small
but
fish.
you're right. The nose is not too pronounced, Kate. I agree with you 100%. While it is not, as soon as you touch it with your tongue, boom, grass and minerality. Yes.
I will say for me, I got the most nose on this one, and I realized what I did different was I poured it in the glass and I put something on top of the glass and let it open up a little while we were talking. So when I took the lid off, all of the vapors that were collected in there gave me a bigger nose. So worth trying.
Do you guys get like a hint of smoke there, or it's me?
I've been getting it on every expression so far, and I thought that was just me being off today.
I'll follow your example, Vadim, and I'll just leave it here for a few minutes and revisit it.
It's funny that you say that. I got smoke on the first two and not on this one. But I wonder if I need to cover a little bit. I wonder what's happening with that, Vadim.
Yeah, I think on the Blair Ethel, I got like wood char kind of smoke on the palate. And then on the Ben Rinnis, I had a waft of like peaty smoke on the back end. But that was, again, might just be me. Might also be the fact that I'm drinking out of a Brandon Highland Park glass, so I'm getting suggestion in my head.
The nose has changed significantly with water as well. So I wonder if anybody else has found that. But I mean, it's much more pleasant with water in the drink.
It comes a bit aggressive, Kate, when it's just at the natural strength. You're right. Now I get some, so nuttiness is gone, and now I get some spicy notes. Yeah. But still, I get some hint of smoke here.
Could that be from the barrel, Sam?
Good question, Brian. Sometimes, and I think I find myself or catch myself mixing, sometimes they would toast and char the barrel to open up a little bit. And that might be confusing with the smoke that comes from drying the barley. So I don't think they dry the barley with any peat. So that smoke could be part of the barrel treatment. Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, if it's a rechar, it definitely that's kind of the smoke that I was mostly getting.
Yeah, it tastes like barrel char to me. It's just that little tiny hint of campfire smoke. It doesn't taste like peat at all. This is fascinating. It's changed so quickly. Just the short amount of time that it's been open.
Yeah, it's the whiskey with the character for sure.
Yeah. It's surprisingly oily on a mouthfeel for something that is so light. You would think it's going to be a lot lighter on the palate than it actually comes out as. It's really interesting stuff.
It's sneaky.
We like sneaky.
Yeah.
Chocolate, yeah. That probably Blair Ethel, right? You're talking about, Kate? I'm just catching on that.
No,
And the
this one
comments.
I got
No.
Linda?
caramel and chocolate on the palate as it's been sitting in my glass and opening up a little bit. It's definitely changed and brought that out along with that smoky note where I got more grass and minerality on it at the beginning. So it's really morphing interestingly.
Yeah. And just as I was just thinking, hey, I think I'm tasting chocolate. And then Jane posted her comment about chocolate at the same moment. It was, yep.
Great. Intense. Huh. Interesting. Anyone else would agree with Bill or disagree with Bill?
I don't know that I'm tasting plantains, but now that he's mentioned it, I bet you this would be a great whiskey to drink with like a Cuban plate of food. And perfect that's a plantains type of thing. So yeah, I could see the compliment. I don't know that I taste it.
So it's strong enough to match that kind of a type of cuisine without overpowering it. Yeah, I see that. Sherry must love the plaintiffs. Bill. We ready for the next one, Vadim?
Yeah, whenever you are, we're good to go. I went and grabbed some more toppers to cover these and let them open up. Decided to take my own advice.
Yeah, I have two. They actually help a lot. So I wanted to take a look at the color of this. And this comes from M&H Distillery out of Israel, Tel Aviv. And our global brand ambassador, Tal, his best friend lives he runs the winery that produces one of the best Muscat wines out there. And he was nice enough to give him the cask, as you already mentioned. What do we do with, what do they do with the casks that are used to put their whiskey in that Muscat cask? So it's a 3-year-old whiskey, but it's got a lot of character. It produced about 282 bottles. And let's see.
And I'm guessing it's a sherry muscat. I mean not sherry. It's a kosher muscat. I think everything M&H
Yeah,
releases.
everything there is kosher, and we put this Star K
Mhm.
thing on every product that comes from this distillery. As you know, they produce Levantine gin and some great single malt whiskeys. One of them just brought them best single malt in the world. That's Elements Sherry. They're doing a fantastic job, and they're open to experiments, and they get a lot of accolades from the prestigious competitions. But most importantly is that the people enjoy their whiskeys.
I
There's
can't believe
some-
that whiskey of the year was the Elements Sherry. That was $50 at Costco for a while. Not anymore.
Yeah, if we only knew, right?
Yeah.
I remember we had like 400 cases or whatever in our warehouses, and as soon as the announcement came 30 minutes later, I looked at the inventory, it's 0. Then we brought another, whatever they had. I think they had like 600 cases, because everyone in the world was looking for it, all the distributors or importers. So whatever they had, we brought. 2 days later, it's gone. So now we're waiting for another shipment to come and cover it. It's just, I'm not a big, kind of, I don't appreciate fully the accolades, even though I'm a judge of a few competitions. But commercial wise, like from business perspective, it's a big deal. Like my wife goes to Costco, she has no idea what to buy. But if she sees 92 points, double gold medal, whatever, just, that makes her buying decisions. So as a whiskey connoisseur, it's all subjective. As a business owner, I can proudly say our brands have so many great accolades, like top 20 whiskeys of the year. We're 5th or 6th year in a row getting this trophy of being top 20 whiskeys of the one of our expressions, one of our whiskeys, and some other best in show and etc. So it's good business wise, but again, your taste, your comments are more important to me than the competitions, because it's all subjective. It's all matter of taste.
Sam, if I can say one thing on this brand, they have won now 4 times Innovator of the Year award from the same people that gave them Distillery Single Malt of the Year award. And if you realize where that comes from, the Israeli people as a whole are not likely to sit back on their laurels and just rely on that to go. Tomer and Tal together, it's funny, whenever we do an event with both of them on Zoom or whatever else, they're always having a beer rather than drinking the whiskeys. Okay. And I think that beer influence to them has sparked them to always look for something different, always look for, the new, if you will, out there. And that beauty has come through with these whiskeys that they're creating. I mean, if I'm a favorite lover of what they do called pomegranate. And if you ever want to taste something that'll twist your tongue backwards, forwards, inside out, and upside down, I call it the tongue twister. And that's the ImpEx, which would be the cast strength version of it, or the 92 proof version of it, which would fall into the Elements series. But either way, that sweet tart flavor that you've never tasted before in a malt, you get in that whiskey. Just like on this whiskey, you get that dessert wine note to it that just, whoever heard of taking a whiskey that's going to be in bourbon all this time and throw it into such a weird, different type of Madeira wood, and look what you get. It's that innovative capability. And it's amazing because Israelis typically, as Tal will tell you, they are not very patient people. So to be able to be patient enough to let this whiskey develop to what it is an incredible feat for them. Thank you.
That's true. Since you brought it up, I have to share the story because these people are so close to me that I can't keep any secrets. So that was in 2020. I think it was 2020 when the pandemic started. We met with a whole group of M&H people in Edinburgh because they were looking for the US importer and they wanted for us to take the brand, and they found out that we're going to visit some distilleries in Scotland. It was a whole group of our reps. And we met with them in Glasgow. It was a nice place, and they made the presentation. About 6 of them there were. And we tasted the whiskeys, and one of the whiskeys that they brought was the pomegranate that Brian mentioned. We all loved it. We all loved it. And at some point, we'll see this bottle, the sample bottle of this pomegranate, disappeared. So everyone wants to retaste it. Everyone wants to talk about it, and it's not there. So Brian has stolen this bottle, put it in the pocket here, because he fell in love so much with it. And now that's the one. There we go. Wow. So anyways, yes, you're right. They're very experimental, and because pomegranate is kind of their wine and they're very commonly used fruit for everything, that makes this expression really stand out. But the one we're tasting is actually from another fortified wine called Muscat, and hence the color and the nose that gives you a nice kind of a orchard fruit and some white chocolate, I believe.
This is amazing with, to me, dark red fruits on it. But I will say my one complaint, I love Milk and Honey, M&H. The name is a pain in the butt to search when I'm searching for it at stores online, because the ampersand always throws off the search, like the search function at stores.
That's a different story. Again, we're close enough to this group to share. So we brought in, before you bring the stuff, you need to TTB, to label approval. So we went through the label approval process. And especially with the Levantine gin, you have to go through formulas online and then send it to the lab and then list all the ingredients and the method of production, all this, fun stuff. And it's a public HOLA, it's called. So everyone can go and see the label approved. So as soon as it became public, we got a nice love letter from the attorney group saying, no, you cannot call it M&H, you can call it Milk and Honey, because we have a product like buttermilk or something like that in Wisconsin that we call Milk and Honey. So everything we did went kind of down the drain. And I was told that they came to the agreement to how to let Milk and Honey use it. And they actually don't want to call it Milk and Honey, they want to call it M&H. But M&H, people don't know what it stands for, so they decided to go with 2 names and then kind of smoothly go to M&H when everyone knows what M&H is. Last year, we got a container detained at the port for 30 days because the company that had this name, out of Wisconsin, claimed that, it's a trademark and you cannot. So 30 days battle between the lawyers. It finally was released, but we had a private cask for one client in this container, and of course that was for like November Club, and we missed it, so that was a little bit of a headache, and plus we missed the OND, October, November, December, the most important month in this industry. So yeah, we had a little bit of a hiccup with this. So I agree with you. Sometimes when you do the search, you have to go M and then space and space H, or Milk and Honey would. So hopefully the brand is well known enough for people to look up deeper, but it is what it is. I will definitely bring this concern to them. I don't know how they're going to fix it, but M&H.
The other thing about M&H, the name, if you recall, Sam, is that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms basically said there's no way that you can import this stuff into the United States and call it whiskey, because whiskey can't have milk and honey in it, because they were too ignorant to understand that Israel is the land of milk and honey.
That's a true story. I got a phone call from the agent from TTB saying, we're working on it, and we're trying to get it through FDA, and they have a question. And I said, yes, sir. What's the question? They go, how much of milk and how much of honey you put in your whiskey? Yeah, that's true. That shows how sometimes we deal with the very competent people that probably get $200,000 a year salary or something. That was funny.
I mean, it always comes down to the lawyers, though, right?
Absolutely, Kate. Yeah.
It's silly.
The worst part is that these are the people that wrote the law, and they have no common sense when it comes to Israel being the land of milk and honey.
Yeah.
They're very narrowly focused on their job, and they're very narrowly focused on what they're reading. They don't step back and look at it and and think with a broader hat. Anyway, these are always good stories. They make for fun stories to tell in these little tastings.
Yeah.
As I'm searching the World Wide Web for M&H expressions, including this one, I realized your favorite shop in San Francisco is the only one I could find that still has whiskey in bloom. And has
you're talking about the whiskey shop? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened? We brought this whiskey in bloom as US exclusive. It was lightly peated version, and just one that was bourbon matured and STR matured.
So the bourbon matured
And,
and the CR matured is what became the classic, right?
Right, exactly. But this whiskey is only 24 months old, and again, a lot of people would say it's young and etc. But we brought it, and we were very transparent about its age. And M&H people are trying to follow, Scottish whiskey making traditions where you can't call it whiskey if it's not. There we go. If it's not 3 years in the cask, so we called it whiskey in bloom. And that's actually becomes the collector's item because.
Go ahead over there, Tracy. Use one of those.
Ryan.
Sorry, I didn't realize.
We don't want Tracy to yell at you and everyone's hearing that, but say hi to Tracy. So yeah, they brought a lot. They wanted more and more and more, and I said, okay, no problem. But then Classic came on, so now it's 3-year-old plus, and it comes in a nice, nicer bottle and branded and all this stuff. So yeah, they have some, and I think they have a pretty big sale on it or something like that because they've been selling it for a while, longer than they thought it would take him to sell. So as Brian, I have 2 bottles in my collection because I think it's remarkable. It's something that will never be repeated. It's something that was released once for the US exclusively. And so on the palate, dark cacao, some spice really, maybe plum jam, something. Dark honey. Very chewy, like almost like a plum tart or something. Thanks, Jason. I haven't come through many of Muscat, which was again very kind of appealing to me and interesting. I get some tobacco notes. And some like a old leather, like when you walk into leather repairing shop or maybe store. Toasted nuts. That's what it is. Toasted nuts.
Yeah, this one comes across as a old leather armchair in a library full of books, and you just kind of sit there in an afternoon with the fire roaring. It's a really amazing 3-year-old, you know, the climate being what it is and the factor in maturation. It's fascinating. I still get a lot of data on it, even though it's been sitting here for a while. That was the first thing I got on it, and I'm still getting it, but it's added a few things. It's super rich though. It's really lovely.
The first cask we brought from them under ImpEx collection was the sherry finished, and I loved it a lot. But since this was unique in terms of like we have the sherry, which won best single malt in the world as Element series, I thought this one was very unique. And they did send me another sample of sherry matured. I think it was PX sherry, and I said it's great, but I want something very like weird and unique and niche. And Tal goes, "You got me on this. I got a cask for you that you will love." And that's how this one was born. I see Pam Longville name here. Don't see your face, Pam, but thanks for joining, and thank you for all the support that you're getting to our brains from Minnesota. Nice to see your name here. Yeah, dates and apricots. That's a good one.
I remember when Milk and Honey released their Dead Sea and the pomegranate cask. I had to get one of each just to have in the collection, as those were first time in the world I ever done something like that.
Yeah, they lose about 10 to 12% to Angel share from their Tel Aviv warehouse, but when it comes to Dead Sea, that's 25% a year. So they keep it there for a year, and then they just bring it back to either Holland Heights or Tel Aviv warehouse to just slow down the maturation. But it's fascinating how climate influences the whiskey. Again, another Jim Swan distillery.
Joshua actually just recently interviewed David Cover, and they were talking about M&H. Definitely worth a listen if anybody hasn't already listened to One Nation Under Whiskey. It's a really good conversation.
They had a great market visit, market work a couple weeks ago, and Tal was supposed to come as well, their global brand ambassador, but because of the latest situation there, he decided to stay there and with his family. We actually had a event scheduled with him and David and Josh, Drummers Club in New York, but I decided for them to cancel it because there was some rumors going on that it's safer to stay home. That day was like 10th of October or something in New York.
Wow.
Better safe than sorry.
100%.
Moving on.
Yeah, I drank my sample a while ago, and I still have the aftertaste of like sweet gummy candy. Like not like The rubbery gummy worms are the ones that like kind of melt in your mouth. You know what I'm talking about? Like gumdrops type of deal. Like that, just in the back of my palate, just coated the palate and just candy sweetness. Really interesting. All right,
So we're going back to, sorry,
yeah, we're going to Scotland, huh?
going back to Scotland to Islay, island of Islay. In this case, it's Colilla. One of my favorite distilleries on Islay. Even though it's difficult for me to say that because we're the importers of Kilchoman, but I think they both are beautiful as other distilleries on Islay. I'm pretty sure you guys enjoy Lafroig and Ardbeg and Bunnahabhain and Brooklindy and Bowmore and Colilla is the major component to Johnny Walker that makes Johnny Walker smoky and peaty. So a lot of it goes into the blend. And but whatever is bottled as independent bottler, I really enjoy, and I think there's no any independent bottler that bottled Colilla under their name that was not less that was less than excellent. So I hope this is not going to be an exception. You can notice the color, even though it says it's Hogshead. The manifest did not specify what this cask was used for before. So since it said Hogshead, which refers more like to the size of the cask, 250 liters, my thoughts on that was it was a bourbon cask, and then the cooper added some staves to make it a Hogshead, and those staves were sherry cask staves, because you do get some nice sherry cask influence here, not in a way of like a sherry bomb, but in a very nice balance between the distillate that dictates sweet and smoke, and then the sherry kind of influence to it.
Yeah, as everyone in this room will tell you, I'm not a huge peat drinker. And this has a lot of that ashiness and earthiness that I get. But Kalila, my friends have said that I'm co-curious because of all the peat bombs on Isla, the first bottle I actually enjoyed and went and got more seconds of was a bottle that I was gifted of a single cask nation Kalila pick. And so I've been exploring the Kalila independent bottlings, so I was really excited to try this for that reason. That was the first time I was like, wow, that's actually good. I don't have to fight through it.
Some respected people in this industry said, if you as an independent bottler bottle Kalila and it's not good, you got to find another job. It's one of those distilleries that I always enjoy as an independent bottler, and I know that Brian would go like, Sam, another Kalila? How many Kalilas? And I get whatever Kalila I can get. I just bring it. We had a few from Adelphi was the one, the 12-year-old. The first edition, the edition 1 of the ImpEx collection had Kalila Hogshead mature. Lighter color, probably color like this. And it has its own beauties. And this is another, so sweet smoke and sherry. That's my kind of a favorite combination of things. And you're right, it's not something like comes and punches you in the face like here I am. It's with this 25 to 30 ppm phenol, and having this kind of a wood treatment, it's really approachable. It's even for people who don't like Islay whiskeys. I think it's a good gateway to Islay whiskeys.
so much sweetness on this. Very candy-like. I think we're following the candy trajectory. And after the first sip, the smoke is very much subdued. And that's what I've heard, right? You don't taste the peat anymore if you're an Isla because you're swallowed up in it. So the first taste is always the hardest.
It's got some maritime influence. You can see yourself right next to the campfire in a little bit of a rainy day, maybe fishing or having a great conversation with friends and just sipping it. The life's beautiful.
Yeah, I almost taste more smoke than peat on this one. So I'm it's jarring, actually, the amount of smoke, because I'm used to, if it's peat, I'm used to tasting the peat. But here I hardly taste the peat, and it's the smoke just, it's like, wow, it just slams me in the face, It's very interesting.
You're today so parallel with Jane's comments, and she said the smoky barbecue in the middle and then peat holes. Like, yeah, you get like, you basically have a barbecue in your glass. Mesquite or something, yeah.
Yeah, it's much more of the campfire type of peat than the medicinal Band-Aid kind of peat. I think that's why it tapers off on the finish, so it's really subtle, more than oh my god, I taste Band-Aids to the end of the glass. It's so nice because it's just soft.
You wonder if they brought in some Highland peat and exposed it to it when they made this, instead of going to Port Ellen maltings and grabbing the peat from there.
I wouldn't be surprised that if they used the Highland peat, which is very slight chance because malting floors of Port Ellen, that's a property of Diageo, and Kalili is Diageo distillery, so most likely that. But the way Kate and Jane described, it's more like, if it's Highland peat would be like drier and sweeter than moisturized Isla peat. So maybe it takes you towards the Highland peat. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
The sweetness we're getting on this that's just coming from the cask, right?
Olila has some sweetness in its distillate itself. It's like cereal sweetness or baked, something baked. Would it be like a pastry or bread or something that comes from there, like malt profile that comes from the distillate? So it's both. I would say the cask, if it was used for sherry maturation, would give you this fruity sweetness, but also the distillate itself is pretty sweet.
I definitely get that cereal from the barley. It makes me wonder which variety they're using, because there are a couple of them that are naturally sweeter, and that kind of feels like maybe whatever one they're using for this particular expression is the sweeter barley, and that definitely carries through. It's really surprisingly sweet, but it's just wonderful.
Yeah, Concerto or L'Oreal will give you the sweet notes that may be transferred. I don't know if they pay attention at, maybe they started now, but that was 13 years ago. Could be, but knowing Diageo's size and their goals, they definitely don't use the barley that grows on Islay because that's very expensive. They probably order it from maybe some brokers or go through malting floors. But now people started paying more attention on the yeast they use, the barley they use, and of course cask plays a huge role as to how the whiskey turns out to be. But I like to finding this kind of surprises when, you know, the distillery doesn't think about, oh, this is going to be released and distilled and bottled in 13 years. Let's see what kind of profile we're going to do. Will it go along with distillery DNA or be something different? They probably think about massive production to make sure that Johnny Walker is consistent. So hopefully they will start paying more attention to this for sure. Oklahoma barbecue. Yep.
Yeah, so Oklahoma barbecue is not as super sweet as other barbecues styles, you know, and so it's a little bit more of a dry rub than this wet rub with tons of sugar in it. And so this seems like it would be a perfect complement to that. It wouldn't, neither one would overpower each other, right? So, and honestly, it tastes like Oklahoma barbecue. That's what I thought of when I first started drinking it.
We'll just rename the label. We say Oklahoma barbecue in a glass, as per Kate.
Yeah, this has got a bit of a gingerbread note to it. Like this would be really good with a nice warm slice of fresh gingerbread with a lemon sauce. With this alongside of it, I think that would be spectacular. I think I know what I have to do for the holidays.
I'm
coming over to Jane's house. Be ready for me.
You guys work like a duet today, like with your tasting notes and comments, like one compliments another one. You're on the same page today. Don't know when it's going to happen when Kate comes to your house, Jane. It could be a big fight about the tasting notes, but for now, you guys behave. I like it. I like Jason's notes as well. Machine shop. Yeah. Let's see what you're saying. Mix of oil and smoke, hot metal, and sweet. Beautiful. It's amazing what kind of associations we get from these whiskeys. You know, getting back to M&H, you know, we used to live in like a community of 11 houses. And when the time to make the plum jam, because we were doing that for the winter time, because we didn't have that all year round, every neighbor would take a turn. It's like a brick oven with a copper thing and everyone is like for an hour just, you know, mashing this jam, and the smell that was all of it was outside, and the smell stayed there like for a couple of days. That's what I get from this M&H Muscat. Like that's what reminds me, this jam, plum jam. Nicely said, Jason. That's never thought about that. Like being in my grandpa's auto garage. Beautiful.
I can't wait to get to this Pandaren.
Are we ready for the Pandaren?
I've been smelling it. I stopped smelling the Kalila, and I've been sniffing this Pandaren, and it's so good on the nose. As we transition into our final pour of the night, I do want to ask Wes, Pam, Jason, Alex, if you all can jump on your cameras for just a second. We do have a tradition here. If you're here, yes. Hello, Wes. And I do want to raise a glass to Sam for being here with us tonight and for making this possible for us. So to you, to all of your endeavors, cheers. Thank you for being here.
To you.
Beautiful. First try, I got it. Awesome. So I will say, I was doing a bit of research into the Universal Whiskey Experience. People know Nth Experience in Vegas, the high roller, $500 a person whiskey tasting. And correct me if I'm wrong, this Pandaren was featured in the Super Pours lineup. So shoulder to shoulder with pours like the 1965 Glen Grant and a 30-year-old Dalmore and another more like 30 year. So pretty impressive lineup, and this was one of them.
Well, that's another weird thing that we're trying to position ourselves at. Age, as we all know, and I'm talking about our age and age of whiskey, it's just a number. Right, John? There you go. At least one person. Bill is in agreement as well. And I'm pretty sure Sherry is in agreement. So it's just a number, you know, and as Vadim mentioned, this show is in the Wynn Hotel, and it's a lot of money for us as a vendors. It's a lot of money for people as an admission. And you got Richard Peterson putting 50-year-old whiskey from Dalmore, and some Gordon MacPhail people who put whiskeys like 7-year-old Mortlach. And here I am with 5-year-old whiskey. It's weird, and it's risky, and it's challenging, and it's kind of, you know, what do I do? Why am I doing this? But it stood out pretty good. Well, people loved it, and people called our table best table and show, and etc. So maybe they said it to every table there, but it was pleasant for me to hear that our table was the best in show. So, and this particular Pandarian made it so standing out. So again, don't expect from this like a typical Pandarian that uses the Faraday steel that produces a very soft, light spirit style. It's made, in about 4 or 5 years after they opened the distillery, and that was the first distillery to be opened first legal distillery to be opened in Wales for 100 years. There used to be about 50 illegal distilleries. And they started with this Faraday steel producing that spirit, but 4 or 5 years later, they put the regular copper stills. And this particular distillate was made in this through double distillation, the copper still distillation. So it's oilier, it's heavier, it's waxier, it's got more mouthfeel. Another thing that Pandarian traditionally does, they would mature the whiskey in the bourbon cask and then finish it in Madeira cask or port cask or STR cask or peated cask. This is fully matured in that wonderful single cask that came from Madeira Island. Malvasia is a type of grape, and as I said, Blondies is like an opus one for Madeira casks. So to you all, hope you liked it as much as we do. And I hope I didn't screw up by putting that after Kalila. Cheers.
The poll is up, so make sure you vote, and good luck. You can only pick one.
Damn you.
I'm really curious on this one because they were all so different.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious about what is the whatever the hell the cask is. I have never heard of that particular name. Is it like
Malvasia?
Malvasia? Is that a place?
Yeah.
Or just
No, it's actually, it's a type of grape they use
okay.
to produce it.
Okay.
So the place is Madeira Island in Portugal. And the brand called Blondies.
Oh, they make great stuff. This is amazing. I have not ever tried anything from Pandaren that I didn't just love. This is kind of shocking that it kind of makes me not miss my Rhiannon anymore. Because I know this one I could probably still find maybe if I got lucky.
Yeah, actually the cask itself was a pretty big size. It was bigger than Sherry Butt. So we got a good number of bottles, 475 bottles out of it. So yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's I can't even remember the other whiskeys now. Like I see this poll in front of me and I'm trying to remember what did the Blair Owl taste like? I don't know. I can't remember. All I taste is Penderin in my mouth. Wow.
Okay, that makes my evening, because I was debating with myself how to put it in the right order. And
Yeah.
if this one made you forget about everything else, I don't mind. It's all good.
But
It's towards
you
the
know, it's funny that I'm starting to think back now. Okay, how did I feel about each one when I tasted them? And I'm pretty sure I forgot the one just before it for every single one of these. In other words, they're all stars, and I don't know how to choose.
It's again, that's great, Bill. Yeah, so I'll tell you, if this little whiskey, a 5-year-old, made you forget about all these monsters that you tasted before, thank you very much for that. That's really music to my ears.
Tastes like a good grandpa to me. That was for Jason.
Got some cinnamon at the end.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that there's some cinnamon on it and dates. Like it's like Christmas in a glass. All those nice warm notes. It's like I just want it to get really cold so I can sit out there and on the patio and drink this.
Christmas
So-
Eve, that's for sure. Yep.
So I think this would complement a very good fruitcake, which, I mean, nobody loves fruitcake, but if you get a good fruitcake, it's really good. And I bet you this would be a terrific whiskey to drink with your fruitcake, or pour over your fruitcake to moisten it a bit.
You used very good and fruitcake in the same sentence. There's something wrong with you.
I was thinking about putting it over the vanilla ice cream for whatever reason. Like on a good Christmas night, like when it's kind of nasty outside and you just see this fireplace there and it just got some long spicy finish.
I'm looking at the link that Vadim posted with the entire list of all of the ImpEx collection bottles that he found. And I'm just, from the one looking at the ones we've tried, I cannot believe what I call the cost to yum ratio on these. These bottles seem, looking at the prices, they seem way underpriced for how delicious these were. I mean, these are, to me, they're bargains. They're absolute bargains looking at the prices and how much I enjoyed every single one of these.
Jason, I'm kicking you under the table.
There's a few things that kind of we're trying to follow religiously closely. Because you deal with a 3-tier system here, and when it comes to single malt, single cask expressions, with the 3-tier system, it becomes pretty nasty. So there's a few rules that I'm trying to follow or to be in kind of compliance with. For a long time on independent bottlers, we say the price should be about $10 per year. So if you're talking about like 10-year-old whiskey, it should be about $100. Again, there's some exceptions for sure, especially when it comes to other whiskeys. They seem to be more expensive. And of course, you can't, expect Penderin 5-year-old to be $50. It's just impossible. But we're trying to, even now, it becomes more and more difficult to find a good quality whiskey, the single casks that would kind of be in this fork of pricing. We're trying. Again, it's a passion project. It's not something that will make me a millionaire. Will never. It's just, I love doing that. I love talking to you about that. And if you find it affordable, I appreciate that, because we work hard to make sure it is affordable.
How does the selection process go, right? Because you're tasked with being the importer, and then oftentimes you have to choose America exclusive or California exclusive for the brand, and then you are also trying to pick something weird, obscure, and delicious for your own brand, and you're also importing into other independent bottlers. There's no cannibalization, right? It seems like you're rising the tide for everyone. So how does that work? I mean, that's got to be difficult to do.
Well, it is and it isn't. I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by people who are passionate about what they do. Yes, the money comes along with this, but it's not money first and then the rest. And you're right, on the distilleries that we import, we bring the exclusive cask, whether it's a Glenallachie or Kilchoman or, Isle of Raasay or Lochley or whatever else. They're small enough to be able to produce one single cask at a time. When you go to the bigger distilleries, just not their goals. Their goals are different, which is great, but they're able to accommodate bottling one cask at a time. So Kilchoman would give us 7 casks a year, and they all would be US exclusive. And then they would give us 3 or 4 small batch US exclusive. They send us samples, we taste them. I have a privilege of selecting some for ImpEx, general distribution. It's called Kilchoman Cask Evolution. And then I would make the rest available for stores like Specs in Texas or Beanie's in Illinois or K&L in California, and et cetera, et cetera. That's what we do with Kilchoman, with Glenallachie, et cetera, et cetera. Then we have independent bottlers, like you said. And again, we would bring batches, meaning 1 cask at the time, but 6, 7, 8, 10 casks. We'll call it in SMOS or Single Malts of Scotland, round 1, round 2, round 3, and round 4. We would do that, and then we would bring some from Single Cask Nation. We'd bring some from Adelphi's, and then from the ImpEx collection. I'm trying not, if I bring Bendrinis and there's another Bendrinis from Single Cask Nation, it would go to their club, so it won't overlap with the public releases. We're trying not to create an internal competition. And, sometimes Single Cask Nation would bring Legic, one bourbon matured, another one sherry matured. I'm okay with that, because people sometimes take 2 bottles and they kind of taste them back to back or side by side. It's all good. But the idea is to bring as many expressions as many distilleries, or within the distilleries expressions, like different wood treatments, finishes, etc. That would surprise people and make the spectrum of clientele wider. That's basically what it is.
And I think the cool thing with whiskey drinkers that drink independently bottled distilleries at cask strength, like we're a very specific demographic, right? We're not the general whiskey drinker. We're not drinking 40 to 43% Jameson, right? So when you start targeting that demographic, at least in my opinion, you start getting to people that are not looking to buy 1 bottle for a party and kill it. You're looking at people who are like, oh, I'm going to get 1 of each because I want to do a flight and I want to taste Sam's versus Single Cask Nation versus this versus that. Like, I want to taste all these things and share them with my friends.
Or I know I have different moods and these whiskeys all suit these various moods. And now I have what I need. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good point. Yeah, even not only within the ImpEx portfolio, but other independent bottlers. We kind of try to support each other. We're in competition, no problem with that. We all understand we're trying to find this, marketplace for each and every brand. But at the end of the day, it's up to customer which one they prefer. And one thing I would say that unifies independent bottlers, you can work very hard on building your name and reputation. You bottle one cask that it's mediocre, everything that you've done before goes to down the drain. So everyone is pretty cautious about it. And sometimes like Adelphi would be a good example. Alex Bruce is a great palate, very good friend of mine. And they would send us some samples, and some of them I need to say no, even though he tasted it. So it's very difficult to taste something that is approved by Alex Bruce. It's like trying to sing on the stage after Luciano Pavarotti. It's just, but you have to say no because either the pricing or something else, or taste or whatever, you feel like you don't want to let them down, you don't want to let us down by bringing something that it's okay but not excellent. So yeah, we say no to a lot of, and they end up somewhere. Maybe they change them in trade, or they bottle it for some club in Europe that likes taste and quality and price, so they don't get lost somewhere in the garbage can.
Goes in a blend, Sam. Goes
Yeah.
in a blend.
It's nothing wrong with them. It's not like it just doesn't get to our standard level. Or
I will say I'm really glad we got to try so these are all your picks, right? They've have your name on them. And I'm really glad we got to try kind of a whole range of things you've picked over the last few releases, because now I know closer to your palate, right? I think after these 6, I'm sitting here trying to think of like, what is the overarching theme or flavor that I'm noticing on all these picks? And I think for me, I think you have a sweet tooth for whiskey. Every one of these is a dessert whiskey. Every one of these is jam in a glass.
we brought, and I'm trying to bring at least one blend or one single grain whiskey in with each edition, because I think it's important to support. It's a tougher category because people think blend is something like Johnny Walker Red or something, or grain would be like a bottle filler for a blended whiskey. Trying to break this kind of a view on this, and this time we brought 49-year-old grain whiskey from Inver Gordon Distillery, and that's, speaking of a sweet tooth, that's a sweet whiskey there, because they used to use corn, a lot of corn, when they were producing it, many years ago, before bourbon kind of category took over, and now they're using more like a wheat or some other grain. So that one was really like corn sweet whiskey that I'm not gonna argue. I do have the sweet tooth for sure.
It just means going forward, when I see your pick on the shelf, I know if I'm feeling sweet that night, it'll make me happy.
Your wife probably calls you double sugar.
He wishes his wife called him double sugar.
Yep. Here's my double sugar, a 9-week-old. My hero, my chimney.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Thank you. He thanks you for the compliment. He's sleepy.
I feel like I took a trip around the world here, because oftentimes we taste from a specific distiller, and so the variances are small. But here, there was such a wide range. I mean, you know, like I said, it feels like I took a trip around the world because tonight we tasted such different flavors, and yet they were all stellar. I mean, I want to see what the results are, Vadim.
Sam, you want to take a guess of what the winning dram of the night was?
Well, that's the most difficult question because people, for whatever reason, they always ask like, "What's your favorite?" And my standard answer is like, depends on the day of the week. So it's Thursday now. Let's say that's a wild guess, really wild guess. Benrinus.
And that's what I would have voted for. But the results are in. And the Pandaren, they knocked everyone back. Nobody could remember everything. The other ones. Once they got to the last one, that's it. 44% voted for Pandaren. Kalila took second place with 22. And then Benrinus, Blair Athol, and M&H got votes as well. Pretty cool.
I think it's a great distribution of tastes. I'd be disappointed if everyone liked just Pandaren or Khalil or whatever. So it's good that it's a rainbow of different taste profiles that you guys have and enjoy different whiskeys. This is awesome.
Everyone going back to the Benrinus is making me jealous. Now I'm wishing I hadn't killed my sample. So good. Oh, thanks, Jane. That makes me feel better.
Well, this is Kate. This is for Kate because she's the one who comes to visit Jane soon. So you're out of luck, Vadim. If you run out of Benrinus, I'll send you another little sample of it to enjoy.
Thank you.
Is the liquid better than everything we tasted?
Okay, Jordan, please bring it up. Bring it up. Come on. Tell us.
I was waiting for that one.
The hate mail you sent me. Come on.
I'm just sad at you because you didn't give me liquid. And you know it's one of the few that I really like, even though
I didn't know that. That's one of my favorite distilleries.
yeah, dude. Linkwood and Glenalchie Tenure. You know, those are my soft spots. Yeah.
Okay, good to know. All right, I'll keep noted. Sam, tell us about that liquid you bottled.
Sure, that was actually unexpectedly expectable run out within, like, that was the first one we sold, this liquid. So, you know, when we do the whiskeys of the world, we submit whatever we pour like a month before. So we put it as a VIP pour and etc. And by the time the whiskeys of the world took place, it was gone out of my warehouse. But we had a bottle or two left for this pouring thing. And my nephew came, who's an attorney, but you know, he came, he likes whiskey and etc. So he ended up buying 4 bottles from the shop. And he's usually kind of thinking of the variety, but he goes, I loved it so much. And then he was a witness of 3 people who are judges at the competition, at the San Francisco World Spirits competition. And they were tasting this liquid and they said, this liquid is by far best single malt that we tasted tonight. And there was a lot of great single malts there, no problem with that. But it was just Jordan, you know, it was a great liquid, no questions. Again, Diageo Distillery, huge component to Johnny Walker. It has this space side character that really makes it enjoyable. So thank you. The Glenalchie you tasted, was it one of the batch strength, like 10-year-old cask strength Glenalchie?
Yeah, I have like 8 bottles from the last 3 years because I really like them.
So you have edition 6, 7, and 8?
Correct.
Got it. Yeah. By the way, you probably know that their 3rd edition was named best space side whiskey in the world.
And I just missed it. Yes.
They're similar. I think edition 8 would be the closest one to 3, so you didn't miss a lot.
Jordan might
Jason,
have a couple of bottles in his collection, but yeah, well, after we did that tasting with you, I think is when he started scooping up all the 10-year-old Glenallekeys he could find, and then apparently told friends and relatives, so he started getting bottles as gifts.
Correct.
these both are great space ciders, no question about that. It's old style space cider, because now a lot of space cider distilleries, not a lot, but a good number of them started making their whiskey peated. And speaking of Glenallachie, they just came out with peated version of Glenallachie called Mickeltor, which is bottled or produced and bottled under Billy Walker ownership. So that's the first release. When he bought the distillery, he made peated, and it's a 5-year-old, which we'll have here in probably February of 2024. So whoever likes space and whiskey peated, and there's a lot of them, like Regaliki, another one. By the way, Jason, do you know that the Blednach now came up with a peated expression?
Yep, I got the email. I have the email.
Interesting.
Knowing that I can't get it anytime soon, if ever.
Yeah, I know that you're going through these challenges. If I get a hold of it, I'll let you know. I will share with you. But because peated whiskey became so popular, there's a lot of whiskeys like Craigellachie would be a good example, Benromach, Benriach, and many more would produce peated versions of their releases. And now Blednach, which is a lowland distillery, who would think?
It's very interesting to me because you'd think that it'd be a pain in the butt to do that. I mean, they have to do the peated run right before they do their annual cleaning, I guess, because that's what Balveni's done. Right, running peated, if you don't normally do peated, is a gamble, because if you have any of those residuals and people love your unpeated stuff, they're going to be pretty upset if those oils are still on the still.
Take a look at this doggy. I'm sorry, when I see the dog, what's his or her name, Jane?
Hard to do that with a dog on your arm. Fanny.
Fanny.
Yeah.
Beautiful. How old?
6 going on 85.
Big girl.
I was to Vadim's point, I know Isle of Arran had their peated line for a while, so they had their Mockery Moor line, which was kind of then that risk factor, which is why I think they spun off to have Log as a separate distillery to handle all of their peated. But Annandale, also a lowland whiskey, which again, you never think of lowlands as ever having peated, is another lowland distillery that they started off their first releases. They did a parallel set that was peated and one that was unpeated. So it's interesting. I tried the Annandale and it was okay. It was whiskey. They've got a little ways to go, I personally think, but it's interesting seeing how much more people are doing, how many more distilleries are doing peated. Like you said, the Benriach, their Smoky 10 is a delicious peated whiskey. And there's just so many others out there that I'm really looking forward to the Mickeltor, getting out to Minnesota and just getting out here, period, because I have the 4-year future edition, which was absolutely delicious too.
Yeah, the 50th anniversary. Yeah, that was great. We actually tasted it being at the distillery. Brian, if you remember, they took us through this peated 4-year-old, which now it's part of what becomes 5-year-old Mickeltor. Yeah, I've been to Annandale. Sorry?
I was going to ask, isn't Locklee going to be coming out with something that's because of John?
They actually just bottled a single cask for us that is peated, which is John's style. I tasted a few of their expressions, and I like that best. So we decided to bottle it for the US. But also locally, somebody just brought me a sample of this locally. Take a look at the color. It's pink or rose. That's an ex red wine cask, Cabernet Sauvignon cask that Royal Mile whiskey shop in London selected to be bottled exclusively for them. Unbelievable whiskey. I tasted it. It's just really nice. So yeah, they're coming up with some peated, unpeated version. I've been to Annandale Distillery, Jason, and at that time there was a good. They just opened maybe a year down, and I tasted their whiskeys, and it'd be great to taste it now to see how it changed. Beautiful distillery. I think he invested like 10 million pounds. It's just everything is about top-notch things and etc. So hopefully they will have their ROI. Yeah, and as for Blednoch, I don't know if you guys know the story. Two brothers who used to run them, they were like fighting big time. Like, and they got to the point when one day one brother would come run the distillery, and the next day another brother, and then so they're not together. And then I think he's from some buttermilk industry or something from Australia, came and bought the distillery. That's where all this rebranding started with Pure Scott and this bottles and etc. So
He
it's
was a
interesting.
yogurt. He was a
yogurt.
yogurt magnet.
Yeah, I call it buttermilk. Yeah,
In one of the articles I read about him once, a yogurt magnate.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
kind of a funny phrasing.
But I mean, what I'm trying to say when it comes to this major decisions as to how to produce something that completely changes the style or partially changing the style of the distillery, if people not in a kind of a tandem, the good agreement, that becomes a nightmare. But looks like I wonder how their peated whiskey tastes. It's interesting to see.
Whatever it's worth, I really enjoyed their initial peated whiskey. It was the Alinta. It's part of their series. I was able to taste it when I was there, and it's a good whiskey. It's nice, subtle. It still has some of their initial character. So it's a good whiskey, better than they're growing. They were getting better than I think when they initially, but that peated whiskey is it's a good one. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, more and more distilleries started like running for a couple of months on the peated side, and then they go through all this pipe washing and etc., and then go back to normal non-peated and vice versa. So it's good to have some varietals of styles, even if it comes from the same distillery. I think it's a good thing.
Absolutely. And my thing is just transparency, right? Because I recently bought a brand that labeled themselves as classic Speyside. And yes, if you go back 100 years, Speyside used peat in their malted barley as well. But like what we now all agree is classic Speyside is those fruity, floral Speyside flavors. And they threw it was lightly peated. And I was like, what? So I had to do some research. But I was, understandably a little upset that when somebody puts classic Speyside, just put peated and they'll know. Don't mislead me. I mean, you're right. You're not wrong, but yeah.
Are they able to disclose the distillery name, or it's a mystery?
No, it was Ben Roma.
Oh,
I
okay.
went to a tasting with them recently, and it was really good. I mean, it's good stuff, but just knowing what you come into, right? So their tenure is the classic Speyside single malt. So unless you know what you're getting into, it's a delicious whiskey. It's just it would have been nice if on there it said, "Hey, this is peated."
Well, I don't know if you know this or not, but when Ben Romach and the people at Gordon MacPhail bought Ben Romach from Allied Domecq, Okay, they bought the building without a still because the still was literally scrapped by Allied Domec because it wasn't expected to be able to be resold. So the biggest joke in the world was that they came out with a whiskey initially after designing a still that they felt would be replicable to what Ben Romack was initially, and they called it Ben Romack Traditional. And Ben Romack Traditional ended up being a peated, slightly peated whiskey, but that was the first whiskey that they created when Gordon MacPhail created the new distillate for Ben Romack. And the reason I know this is because I used to visit there quite often with some people from Chicago that used to do a lot of business up there.
I remember Ben Romack Traditional because I used to sell it. Michael Urquhart, who is now retired, one of the owners of the both Gordon MacPhail and Ben Romack, would come to California, would work together. It was one of the toughest sells, like really, and it was like $40 on the shelf. Was not, but then they came out with 10-year-old, which was great, and I think they were using it called Golden Harvest barley. That's another great expression. But as Brian said, they use some peat to dry their barley too. So maybe that what traditional or classic comes from. Maybe it's a bit confusing, but yeah, I would say they consider themselves be a peated Speyside. And I was also at the distillery. It's really run by two people. Don't know about now, but 5 or 6 years ago when I visited, it was like two people in operation.
What's on the horizon for ImpEx? Anything you're super excited in the works?
Well, we just brought a whiskey that's called Necknian, which is organic whiskey, and we're super excited about it. We're
And so
going
are we.
towards, yeah, made by a very talented lady by the name of Annabelle Thomas, who is now in Chicago, working the market and presenting it to Drummers Club. There we go. Yeah, beautiful package.
I
It's
saw she was doing a market visit with you in San Francisco. I guess she never made it down to LA.
no, actually, there was other nickname people. It was Phil Nixon and Matt Harrington who came here for the Whiskeys of the World. What we usually do around that time, we bring all the reps from Southern California and ImpEx reps from all over the country for the annual meeting, and we bring people who, the suppliers that just joined a portfolio. So in this case, it was Okino from New Zealand, Isle of Raasay, and then Necknian and Wolfburn. You guys recently had Mark. So, but Annabelle Thomas, she's now in Chicago doing some Drummers Club and some other things. So yeah, that's an excitement. They use the organically grown barley. The bottle is 100% recycled glass, and it's just everything they do. It's just really prolongs the life of this planet, and it's just remarkable. And it's not only them. Ardnamurchan they just were called greenest distillery in Scotland. They do a great job in terms of being sustainable and thinking of tomorrow, the day after tomorrow for our kids and our kids' kids. It's very, very touching and very remarkable. So we're kind of taking this route. That's probably the most excitement we have now.
That's awesome. We're looking forward to learning about those brands and supporting them in the near future.
Absolutely. Your group will appreciate many things that has been done in Necknian Distillery and Ardnamurchan and some other distilleries like today, when we bring something new, I want to know about their sustainability practices first, and then we go from there. So, like we have some blended whiskey called McLean's Nose. The label itself is made from crushed barley, or we bring some gin from Edinburgh Distillery. Labels are made from some compressed grass. Like this kind of things I really like. I think it says a lot about people's view. Like we don't want to make money now, and we don't care what is going to happen tomorrow. Let's just do things right.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think making labels out of the natural resources that started in the mezcal world. We tasted it. I think Vago does a label that's made out of spent agave, essentially leaves or whatever. So and it's cool to see that coming in, right? Adds a nice touch to the bottle and not just paper.
Absolutely. Ray Campero does the same thing, the same philosophy.
Yeah.
They have Real Minero. You see their bottles, labels. Speaking of mezcal, we brought this mezcal as it's called Felipe Cortez. That's the Mascalero, who's been in the industry for 55 years. He's 72 now. He started when he was 17. So speaking of a sweet tooth, that's another thing that we brought in, trying to have not just single malts from Scotland, but also world whiskies, and then Roms and now mezcals. So since you brought up mezcal, but now you made me think that we might, with our next release, use something like this as a label.
Very cool. Yeah. Yes, there might be a liquid in my near future.
The description of the liquid really got to me, and I have sworn off buying new bottles. Jane and I have had this conversation many times. But if anybody wants to bottle share, maybe we could talk. Let me know.
Liquid is one of my favorite distilleries. So it's an amazing one for sure. It's interesting when people ask me, right? People find out that I'm into whiskey, like people I don't know, right? Like at work or whatever. And the first question is always, what's your favorite distillery? What's your favorite whiskey? Always the favorite one. And when I start throwing out stuff like Blair Athol or Liquid or Othrusk or whatever, nobody ever knows what I'm talking about. I have to say, they only know Glenlivet and Macallan. So I have to be like, okay, Balvenie. Oh yeah, I know that one. I'm like, cool. Yes, that's a really good one.
We had a lot of independently bottled liquids from Signatory, Gordon MacPhail, and others. Again, this is something you can't go wrong with because it's just so lovable as a style. Yeah, so I'm glad Jordan doesn't hear us because I think he disappeared, because that would make him even more kind of a teased and jealous.
He's the one that ordered the bottle. He already ordered the bottle.
Oh, now he's gone. Okay.
Yeah, he ordered it and he went to bed. He went to go put his girls to bed.
So wait, is this a different liquid than the one that we can find online, or is this the same one you're talking about?
The one he's talking about, Kate, I think it's the edition 3 liquid. I didn't bring it today, or I didn't offer it to Vadim because we had been reading it. They're very close to each other in terms of profile. This particular liquid has more like cereal-like sweetness, a lot of vanilla, tons of vanilla. So it's a good summer dram where you can just go sip by sip by sip by sip, just enjoying yourself. It's really doesn't have any bite to it or any. It's just
It
nice.
sounds
Nice.
dangerous.
It
Dangerous.
is.
Yeah.
It is. We can even call it breakfast whiskey because you can start the day
Oh.
easy with this one and just enjoy it all the
We're
way
talking
through.
about the 2008 15-year-old Linkwood, right?
Let me see. Yeah, 2008 15-year-old Linkwood. Yep, that's the one.
AKA breakfast whiskey.
There you go.
I want to get a bottle and just write on it breakfast whiskey. Yeah, I
Yeah,
like that
that's-
idea.
Your
I'm
group is
trying-
so tight. You might want to do. If somebody said bottle share, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I mean,
You know, by the way, you know what I've been doing to bring my friends over to the dark side is I've been at Christmas time, I give people samples of all the hundreds of bottles I have of whiskey. I give them samples of various type of whiskeys that they wouldn't know, like you were saying, the Dean, right? They all know Glenlivet and Macallan, and or you know, Jack Daniels or whatever for bourbon. So what I do is I pull out of my cabinet all these whiskeys, and I have way too many. I can't drink them anyway, and so I pour them into sample bottles and I give them as gifts to friends. And it's great when they say, "Oh my gosh, this was amazing! I never heard of this whiskey before, and it was so good." And I'm like, "Yeah, one of these days you're gonna start collecting whiskey bottles like I do." So I'm doing what I can for you there, Sam.
so you blend them like from different bottles that you have left over. So
No, I put them in and I label what they are. I don't blend any of myself. I mean, I have my own infinity bottles, but I don't give them the infinity bottles. I give them the straight up stuff. Yeah.
it's good. I assume it's not too much left. So whatever's left, it's probably good to be decanted to a smaller container.
Yeah.
You know, oxidation.
Right. It makes it, I go through that process anyway, where I put them into smaller and smaller bottles. And so when at Christmas time, everything gets much smaller because I put them into small sample bottles. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? I'm enjoying the Benrinus. I'm back to square one.
I came back to the Achroisk, and it's so malty and grainy on the nose. It's pretty crazy. After all that Madeira and sweet wine finishes.
That was the unique bottle for me tonight. It wasn't my absolute favorite, but it was the most unique. And I really loved it for that fact. And it was just so mineral. It's delicious. I mean, that's the most important thing, but it was very unique.
I agree with you, Bill. Is that guitar or it's just the one behind you? Is it a guitar?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
play guitar?
No, it's a painted guitar. It's
It's a painting.
it's got a Jimi Hendrix scene painted on it.
Nice.
But is it made out of a whiskey barrel staves?
Jack Daniel whiskey staves.
No, I don't have much whiskey art. I'd be open to it, but I don't have any whiskey art.
Mm.
This was a really great lineup, Sam. I can't thank you enough for this. And I'm you mentioned the Invergordon, you mentioned the Linkwood. What else didn't we have that's part of this third release that you can tell us about?
Sure, Bill. So we also brought an Isla, which is undisclosed distillery, and I don't know what the distillery is. It's 31-year-old single cask of Isla that we loved. And the reason why we can't and there's some debates about it. I think it's Kalila. Somebody is sure that it's Lafroig. Somebody said it's Bonahaven. It's hard to it's hard to determine because there's not too many Isla whiskeys out there that at this age. And as you know, Isla whiskey, as any whiskey, would be giving some whiskey to angels, and the ABV goes down, but also the peat level goes down as it ages in the cask. And like, I find Lafroig kind of medicinal, kind of iodine-y, band-aidy. This one I don't see it, but whoever thinks it's Lafroig, whoever insists it's Lafroig, goes, these medicinal notes are being lost because of the age. So maybe it's a good argument. I don't know, but the idea of it is it's a great whiskey. Like, if you're in Isles and it just has everything that this cask costs us a lot of money. Cans, the price on the shelf, but it's gone. It's all sold out. Maybe a few bottles left, just because I want to have a few bottles. But it's a real, like, it's a collector's item. It's, which I haven't bought one for myself, but I need to before it's gone. But do I like undisclosed distilleries? Probably I don't, but I just couldn't say no to this whiskey when we tasted it. Just brought it in. This one, and as I said, those Felipe Cortez Bicuiche, but we also have another 3 very small expressions of agave spirits from Malbien. Like this one produced only 368 bottles, and it was aged in a glass for 7 years. So it's something that we're trying to stand out with in terms of, like, among independent bottlers. Like, I think we're only one that would bottle something that we bring as an importer. So that's something that, makes us different. Another thing would be that we bring tropically aged rums from pretty, interesting distilleries that produce funky rum, something that has some kick to it, Long Pond. And then now with agave, that's the first time we bring in the agave spirits under ImpEx collection. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah, that was
Great.
6 scotches and 4 mezcals.
Great.
So what other distilled spirits are left for you to try that you're a fan of, that you're excited about? You got the agave, you got the rum, you got the whiskey. What else is Sam Filmus drinking?
Well, I think we're gonna just stay with it for now. I just got a phone call from one of my older suppliers that we used to bring his brands, and they're working on some interesting project where the rye whiskey and some other thing is involved, even though it's coming from Scotland, but it's something that I find very unusual. I don't know if I'm going to go for it because that would ask for a lot of legwork to explain to people the concept and all this stuff, which we love doing this. Brian is showing the gin from Isle of Raasay. Yeah, that's another great gin. I don't know, Vadim. It's a good question. Probably the spirit that I'm enjoying, I would consider, but right now I think we want to be kind of able to manage what we have now and continue pushing things that kind of make us being underdog, like blends, grain whiskeys. I really think this category deserves more attention, more love.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Have you considered looking into any American single malts as that becomes an emerging category? I know you do a lot of, world whiskey and a lot of world spirits, but have you considered looking into American single malts at all in terms of, the independent bottling style, like the ImpEx collection eventually?
No, Jason, that's a great question. The ImpEx originated in 2008 by thinking of we're going to import and export. That's where ImpEx comes from. And at that time, I was offered to buy 100 casks of bourbon, and I did not buy them. So now we would have had, what, 13, 14-year-old bourbon, 15-year-old bourbon. Was one of the mistakes probably, but at the same time, I didn't want to dive in this big ocean of huge competition with big guys. Like, not like we're not in competition with Diageo and Pernod Ricard, etc. We're not, but at the same time, we're in some ways taking advantage of them having the distilleries like Palila and Benrinis and Blair Ethel and Hroisk. But at the same time, with American whiskeys, I think we missed that train, and I didn't want to be the one that is trying to catch it. So we decided not to. I think there's enough space on the market for other, people who are into bourbon. I'm not into bourbon. I'm not into American whiskey. I mean, I enjoy it, but my heart is with single malt Scotch or single malt whiskey. That's basically, yeah. But good question, because it's very popular here, and I know people who are selling the American whiskey or bourbon to UK or Europe. They're very successful if they do it right. But it's just matter of having this 8th day of the week or 25th hour a day to fully dedicate yourself to this, because it's a huge project. You can't do it 50-50. You gotta be involved in that 100%. There's Sherry there.
Yep.
Going through the books.
That's right. Pete actually showed up during the Kalila pour.
There you go.
They're smart.
Beautiful. They know where
That
to-
smoky flavor probably brought her in, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking Armagnacs or cognacs, but I understand what you're saying. When you're doing what you're doing, you have to be all in. And it's hard. Yeah, I mean, you can't do bourbons because otherwise you're all into the bourbons, and there aren't enough hours in the day for you to do all in bourbon and all in Scotch. And certainly Armagnac and cognac, maybe it's a smaller market than the bourbons, but still. Yeah.
Good point,
Just not
Kate.
enough hours, yeah.
We, at the beginning, that was about 2009, 2010, we brought some Armagnac into the United States. It's called Marquis de Montesquieu. Great story. I think it's the oldest house of Armagnac. And it's like Montesquieu was the mother of D'Artagnan from Three Musketeers out of Alexander Dumas. There's a huge, and the guy, he's passed away now, but he was a master distiller. Was the greatest story, greatest, vintage Armagnacs, from $50 to $3,000 a bottle. But unfortunately, we in America don't appreciate Armagnac. We don't understand that. We don't know it, and we don't want to know it. In Europe, Armagnac is more like better understood, better appreciated. It's more popular. So we had to close the line because it just didn't work for us. And then on cognac, we brought the cognac that was part of Pernod Ricard called OGA, and it was natural color, like everything you would think about a smaller batch or craft cognac. It didn't work, so we went through a few things, including French wines that we brought in, like 4 containers, and we bought it for $2 there, and we sold it for $1 a bottle here. Like, there was a few things. So I kind of learned my lesson, maybe a bit hard way. You do what you love to do. When you do what you love to do, then it becomes, the money comes, and it just goes, everything goes together. When you start jumping here and there and here and there, you see the holes created with what you do, because then you're not paying 100% attention. and you're not succeeding there. So it's like you're in limbo. So
Yeah. I understand that. And I think people understand Armagnac a little bit more, but not enough that the market's not big enough. Yeah. So I understand that. Yeah. I mean, we've had some Armagnac tastings. Vadim has brought some brilliant, Armagnacs in here, and I think the club has really enjoyed them, but we're not representative of the overall market. So
well, I appreciate you guys doing that, because in Vadim and in the group, these categories need some more
mhm.
push and love and attention. So it's great that you broaden your palettes and your knowledge. That's great.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
all about discovering new things, right? So we have our very first official cognac tasting at the end of November. So super excited for that.
And the interesting thing is we've done how many Armagnac tastings before we even got to cognac? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
Armagnac is definitely
kind of backwards for most people.
I think for whiskey drinkers, though, especially for bourbon drinkers, at least everyone I talk to, they tend to steer more. If they're a bourbon drinker, they want Armagnac. It's more funky. It's more it's higher proof. It's I don't know.
About the wood
Cognac
too.
thing. Huh?
It's about the wood too.
There you go.
Mhm. Mhm.
From a commercial point of view, a lot of people, because Armagnac has vintages, majority of it, so that would affiliated with their birthdays and etc. We used to have that in whiskeys pretty often, but now it's getting less and less because you can't find 45-year-old whiskey or whatever else. So it's just, but Armagnac is, I think it's good to have. I didn't see some vintages in cognac, and I don't know the category too well, but Armagnac is more like about the vintage, as I understand, and the
Mhm.
age. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Sam, thank you so much. This has been absolutely fantastic. Not a bad whiskey in the lineup, as expected. We look forward to doing more of these with you. Whenever you have a release and you want to talk, these have been absolutely fantastic. We wish you all the best. I know I'm going to be keeping an eye out. The sweet palate definitely agrees with mine. So, really well done. These are absolutely fantastic. We expected no less from you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thank you for seeing those faces and names. I always enjoy your group, and thank you so much for all your support. To you guys, kudos.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you all. You go and do your pacifier now, Brian. Your cigar. Okay, sounds good. Cheers, you all.
Good night.
Bye.